Brand Africa has come into sharp focus at the Brand SA Nation Brand Forum, which is currently underway in Houghton, Johannesburg. With a burgeoning youth population, the possibilities are endless. So what needs to be done then to tap into the well of opportunities that exist? Duduzile Ramela is standing by for us in Houghton. She's with Seanice, Lojede, Group CEO of Flamingo. Dudu, what are the ideas being brought forward today?
A very good afternoon to you, Tembekile, and to our viewers. Very healthy discussions that are being held today, all issues from immigration to telling the story of Africa. When that name pops up in mind, or when you hear somebody say Africa, what comes into mind? Think about it. What informs the narrative? Who controls the narrative? And how important is it for the story to be told by Africans? And what better way to do that other than through digital marketing? As you said, we are joined by Ms. Seanice Lojede, who's the Group CEO of Flamingo, a digital marketing agency, to talk about the story of Africa. Very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, absolutely.
When the question was asked, what is the story of Africa? You use the example of a Baobab tree. Why, and especially just tell our viewers rather, when you look at the Baobab tree and you look at Africa, what's the connection?
So I think with a lot of stereotypes, they get used and they get passed on in harmful ways. So we become this sort of caricature of ourselves. When you look at a baobab tree, you see it in books, you see, but there's a very big depth to who we are. And part of the discussions we're having today are about identity. And you cannot derive your identity if you don't know your roots, where you're coming from. If it's how Africa was divided by the colonial masters amongst ourselves. And there's really more that unites us than divides us. So when you look at Africa and South Africa in that context, you realize that the root of it all is our identity. And then everything we talk about, governance, everything we talk about in terms of education, the family unit, even things like gender-based violence, it all comes from that sense of have we lost our identity. One of the speakers talked about schizophrenia and how Africa sometimes feels schizophrenic. It comes down to that everybody tells us who we should be, but we need to derive that for ourselves. And once you have a healthy root for a tree, the fruits are actually really good. But if the roots are not healthy, you only have fruit that doesn't taste good.
We are the most, we have the most burgeoning youth population rather on this continent. So with the kind of work that you do, right, what do the fruit look like? And what do the fruit say, especially when it comes to the issue of not only unity, but opportunities, right, for young people? What do you see in most parts of the continent? Young people burning the continent instead of actually building it?
I think there's actually more good than bad in the young people. It's just that the bad tends to be sensationalized. There's a lot of collaboration across Africa in the tech industry that I'm in, for example, in digital marketing. We see people harnessing, working with each other in Ghana, in South Africa, in Uganda, in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Tanzania. We're not telling those stories enough. The hope for this continent actually is indeed in the generation that's coming, because we've allowed them, and we should give more credit to ourselves, we've allowed them the freedom to explore who they are. That came from our forefathers who fought for that privilege. And I think that when I look at the opportunities that they have, it does come from a sense of knowing who we are, our music, our food, our culture, and being proud to wear our colors, wear our hair, and say this is who we are. Because only when we're proud of that can we then innovate and build things that solve our problems and actually contribute to the global conversation.
Tell us more about what we're seeing coming out of the continent, right? Like you rightfully mentioned, you are, or your footprint reaches across 5 countries on the continent. So much is said about Silicon Valley, but we don't have to look next door, right? We have it all here. Tell us about some of the examples that you're seeing of great innovation coming out of the continent.
So let's look at Mpesa. Mpesa is simply mobile money, and it actually was born in Kenya. And if you look at Mpesa, there is no European country that was actually transferring money through mobile phones like we have. We've managed to leapfrog technology simply because necessity is the mother of innovation. So we needed a system that worked for us. So the people who were unbanked are now banked because we were innovative enough to create a solution for us. It's a small example, but it shows you what can be done when we stop looking to other people to tell us what we need, and we start looking at how we live, how we love, how we do everything, and say, this is a solution that makes sense for us. it's not a solution that makes sense for anybody else. And I think that's how you see these collaborations actually really making sense.
That soft power, if you will. And then another big talking point during the session is leadership, right? So in the absence of having at top level, at least, people who are going to push the continent forward, what is it that you're seeing in terms of young people taking the lead? And not just young people, right, but everyday Africans who want to see a change.
The thing about Africans, and it was said in the sessions today, is that our biggest strength is also our weakness, and that is resilience. Because we're so resilient, we do without leadership. So we fill in the vacuums. But I think what happens, or what is happening now that I'm seeing, is that more people are interested in being here for more than just themselves. So the word legacy was also thrown around, right? And we don't throw it around loosely, because legacy is what you leave for the generation. Look at the generation that exists now. My 7-year-old son tells me to switch off the lights because I need to conserve energy. That's his thinking. That's the world he's growing into. And I think if more young people are thinking about the future they're leaving for those that come after them, it's not just about me. It's about what I'm leaving behind. Then the future for Africa is bright.
Immigration was also another talking point, and the main word to come out of that session, I guess, was critical skills. We talk a lot about the African Continental Free Trade Area Act, and a lot of it hinges on the free movement of persons, I think, in East Africa. You know, the EAC community is doing well, West Africa is doing well where that is concerned. So I do wonder how you perceive we could integrate a bit better.
Collaboration. I think that word got thrown around a lot, and I think I probably also started that sort of train. If we see others as coming to take from us, we've lost a very big opportunity to see how others can build us. America is a prime example. They don't care about the color of your skin. If you can contribute, if you can build that nation, they welcome you. And I think immigration is at the heart of those policies. The critical skills visa was mentioned, but what are we doing to let people know that this visa exists is part of the issue. There's a lot happening with the UK, for example, where they're bringing in tech talent. There's something called the tech talent visa. They've taken about 600,000 Nigerians to actually go and work on that. Now, if we look at those numbers, you realize that it has to be a deliberate effort for you to attract, retain, and make sure you're nurturing other skills from around the world. Because the goal is to build the country, right? It's not really to be bigger or better than anybody else. And to build a country takes people of all colors, shapes, and sizes, and that has to be policy.
Thank you very much to Ms. Seanice Lojede, Group CEO of Blue Flamingo. And there you have it, Thembekile. Collaboration is what it's going to take to fertilize and to grow this Baobab tree. Great one, may I add. Thank you very much to Ms. Lojede, Group CEO of Blue Flamingo.